You remember this guy? Dr. Ian Malcolm, the character from Jurassic Park, was the chaos theorist. Throughout the movie, he makes several predictions based on chaos theory, which often turn out to be true, such as this memorable line.
But life, finds a way.
Chaos is when the present determines the future, but the approximate present does not approximately determine the future. This means that if you want to predict the future of a system, you need to know exactly where every single molecule of the system is located and where it's going. But Heisenberg's uncertainty principle prevents that, because you cannot know both the direction an atom is moving and its location at the same time. It's always one or the other. This also means things like long-term weather forecasting are never going to be accurate, because there's just no way to determine the position of everything that might have an effect on long-term weather. So instead of blaming the weather forecasters, blame chaos. What is chaos? Chaos is a relatively new subdiscipline of math that deals with the study of complex, nonlinear systems such as the weather, migratory patterns of birds, and the human body. The reason it is so young is because computers are required to calculate the immense possibilities for it, thus delaying its emergence until the second half of the 20th century. What exactly is chaos, though? If you've ever read a book on time travel, you've most likely heard the butterfly effect. The classic metaphor that a butterfly flapping its wings on one continent can, days later, create a storm on another. This has a more scientific term called sensitive dependence on initial conditions, which basically means that the conditions of one starting point, no matter how small, will have big impacts on its result. So a small thing like a butterfly just flapping its wings can create something as big as a storm millions of miles away. This also means that if you change one thing at the start, it will have a huge impact later on. And that is the foundation of chaos theory. It was discovered in 1961 by a scientist named Edward Lorenz. And I'd love to go into the background on it because I think it's kind of cool, but you probably don't, so I'll just move on to the biology stuff. The main use for chaos right now in biology is for graphing and modeling. So, in 1986, a scientist named Bernardo Huberman compiled a model for the erratic eye movements of schizophrenics. It's been known for a long time now that a symptom of schizophrenia is that their eyes have difficulty tracking movement. They always overshoot it or undershoot it when trying to lock onto a target, never actually being able to hit it. And so it creates a haze of extra movements that a normal person's eye do not have. Contrarily, a normal eye will track movement smoothly. The reason for this has yet to be determined, but research is showing a genetic link. Huberman used a very simple chaotic model, very simple, that managed to accurately show the erratic eye movements. However, many biologists were not impressed because it didn't use any terms that they were familiar with. No biology stuff, so they weren't interested. But you're probably not really interested in all that modeling, graphing, too much like math. So I'll move on to the more interesting stuff now. Theoretical biologist, and really, that was the thing, Arthur T. Winfrey, was a rare thinker when it came to the biology world. He had a head full of math and physics, and was attempting to combine them with his biology studies as much as possible, which was a pretty neat concept. His research was on biological clocks, so the sleep cycles and wake cycles of animals, humans, whatever. So he discovered a form of chaos in them. His first research was on mosquitoes. By keeping them in complete darkness and complete isolation, he learned that mosquitoes actually have a 23-hour cycle, not 24 like you'd suspect. The morning sunlight acts as a reset to the clock, restarting their cycle. Instead of trying to guess the biochemistry involved, he looked at a graph of the data. There was a singularity in the geometry, a point that was different from all the other points. And by looking at that point, he predicted that one precisely timed jolt of light could cause a complete breakdown of their biological clocks. And he was right. To quote Winfrey, "You go to a mosquito at midnight and give him a certain number of photons, and that particularly well-timed jolt turns off the mosquito's clock. He's an insomniac after that. He'll doze, buzz for a while, all at random, and he'll continue doing that for as long as he cares to watch, or until you come along with another jolt. You've given him perpetual jet lag." The next research anyone collected on the subject, however, was on humans. They collected data on people paid to live in time isolation. No sunlight, temperature changes, phones, or clocks. Without a daily reset, a person's clock is usually about 25 hours long. However, after a few weeks of living in such isolation, their schedules became erratic. They'd stay awake for 20 or 30 hours and then sleep for 10 or 20 and feel no different. They'd also refuse to believe it when the researchers told them otherwise. It was chaos, pun intended. One of the most well-known experiments in nonlinear dynamics was first conducted by a team of researchers at McGill University in Montreal. They put heart cells from a chicken into a petri dish, shook it up, and found that they all began beating at the same rate, with no outside pacemaker. The pulsing was clearly visible, and when they added an electrical current, they were able to affect its rate. This phenomenon was called mode locking, one regular cycle locking onto another. Another example of this in biology is a woman's menstrual cycle. So with this research and others like it, the physiologists have discovered that a degree of chaos in one system is very beneficial. Simply put, a linear system, given a nudge off track, tends to remain off track, following the line. However, a chaotic system does not have that problem. A nonlinear system, given the same nudge, tends to return to its starting point. Healthy hearts have chaos in their heart rate, allowing them to deal with any potential problem. So, to recap, chaos in biology. 3 things. Modeling, biological clocks, and the heart. So, chaos theory really has a wide variety of applications, but most of them are either A, way over my head, B, far too math-based, and C, you don't really care. So, I'm not going to talk about them. However, if you are interested in this type of math science stuff, I recommend this book called Chaos by James Gleick. I'll put the title in the credits. And my dad made me reread it, and I hated it at first, but then it got interesting about 3 pages in, so yeah, I recommend it. And yeah, that is it.